Alright guys, enough time has passed. So I think it's time we do another Pokemon headcanon video because, well, you guys seem to adore these. No, seriously, I get comments about this on videos completely unrelated to it. It's insane. Of course, like always, here's the Rogue Renegade breakdown of what a headcanon is. Stay with me. A headcanon is a fun little thought you have in your brain. It doesn't have to make sense, be true, or anything really. It can be whatever you want. Something like, I don't know, Hal likes to swallow apples whole because he thinks you get the most amount of flavor that way. And boom, you got yourself a headcanon. So let's not waste any more time and start reading. Sleep Times K says, my headcanon is that all previous normal type Pokemon who gained the fairy type got sick of being obliterated by fighting types and turned the tables on them, a true adaptation to their environment. I don't even blame the normal types for wanting a new type. I feel like the normal type is the lamest type and people always get on me for saying that, but seriously, in a world where there are fire-breathing dogs, water dragons that can somehow fly, and electric rodents crawling around everywhere, if I was just a normal house pet, I'd be pretty mad too. It's like being a non-bender in Avatar. Like, what's the point of even being here? I like to imagine they saw an anti-bullying campaign where like, you know what? You're right. It is time we start fighting back. Danino Gaming MC says, I have a few headcanons spanning a lot of characters. 1. Victor and Gloria are childhood friends and are posh and Scottish respectively, and I imagine Victor trying to cover up a lot of things about Gloria to make her seem more graceful, and the reason why they dubbed her off of her Scottish accent and master. Number 2. Lance was supposed to be a bird keeper and specialized in flying types, but the Indigo League thought that flying isn't a grand enough type for champion and forced him to be a dragon tamer, at least in name. Number 3. Maxie and Archie came from the same high school/college. Number 4. Blue on Johto took the seat for 8th gym leader and doesn't bother trying to be champion again because if he did try, and he definitely could, an hour later Red would inexplicably show up and beat him to the ground again. The idea of Victor trying his best to make Gloria seem more graceful than she really is pretty funny, and I approve. I don't understand what you mean by the Scottish accent though. I've read this so many times and I still don't comprehend. Either I'm too stupid or you worded that really weirdly. Either way, someone please explain in rogue terms in the comments section. Lance being a bird keeper makes way more sense than him being a dragon tamer. Just look at his team. Half of his team isn't even dragon type. Poor guy just wanted to raise his funny little birds but can't because they aren't scary enough. Born to raise birds but forced to train dragons. How sad. I don't know if it's funnier if Maxie and Archie came from the same high school or opposing rival high schools. They just constantly try to one-up each other like, oh, my high school had so-and-so. Yeah, well mine had this. Or maybe they could just insult each other like, are you stupid? If all of the water in the world was gone, we would die. Didn't they teach you that in high school? The last one with Red just showing up out of the blue is just fucking hilarious and I love it. He just can't catch a break. Poor guy probably has to sleep with one eye open. Glass of Milk says, I have a ton of Pokemon headcanons, particularly about the protagonist/rivals, but since I'm replaying X right now, I'll give this one. After the events of X and Y, Serena becomes a super famous fashionista, and her brand becoming as widespread as it did, with all its subsidiaries, is the reason character customization is becoming so widespread in Pokemon. No one was really interested in changing up their style until her designs appeared on shelves. That's how much her clothes changed the game, and how much she blew all the other fashionistas out of the water. Oh, and Callum's the manager for her company. They make a good team, so she figured he'd be a good fit. He handles all the marketing and event planning and such. I can definitely see Serena becoming a fashionista when she's older, especially with the whole region of Kalos being so focused on fashion. Even in the anime, she's one of the only characters who consistently had different outfits while traveling with Ash. So in both the games and anime, the interest is there. I can also see Callum being the manager of her company since they both share the same interest, and I especially like him handling marketing. I can just see him charismatically trying to get people to invest or just create ads and whatnot. I need you guys to comment what her company name would be though. Maybe Serena Style or something like that. I don't know. You guys figure it out. The B08 says, my headcanons are as followed. Number 1. The cheerleaders who used to travel with Gary are all former trainers who competed in the Pokemon leagues in different regions. Not only that, but they caught and trained almost all of the Pokemon Gary used. And when Gary lost at the Indigo League, he blamed his cheerleaders and started verbally lashing out on them. Said cheerleaders quickly became fed up with the arrogant, self-centered 10-year-old and quit, taking all the Pokemon they'd caught with him, leaving him with only 10 out of his 200 originally had, including his starter. As such, while Ash was at the Orange Islands, Gary re-traveled across Kanto, capturing and training new Pokemon for his team. The experience proving to be extremely difficult and humbling for him, now that he actually had to put in the effort. Number 2. Ash and Misty are much closer than is portrayed in the anime. Even after they stop traveling together, the two regularly call each other to keep up with what the other has been up to, and will try to meet up whenever Ash returns from a new region, usually just spending several days hanging out around Ash's home in Pallet Town, much to the delight of Delia, who is very fond of Ash's first traveling companion. Not only that, but Ash regularly lets Misty borrow his water-type Pokemon for gym battles. Number 3. Not only can Ash cook, but he's actually better at it than most of his traveling companions, having spent most of his childhood helping his mother cook at her restaurant. It's just something he enjoys doing. I never would have thought someone would make Gary cheerleader lore, but I'm here for it. I guess that would explain where they went after a while, because they just sort of stopped showing up. I can see Ash and Misty being close like that and just chilling out whenever the opportunity arises. And I think Ash would be more than fine with letting Misty borrow some water types, even while he's not around. I like the idea of Ash learning how to cook from helping his mom at her restaurant, but the thought of Ash being better than Brock and Silent at cooking just seems so outrageous. Silent's whole thing is food, and if some random kid is better than him at it, I'd suggest he switch careers. I feel like Ash did get better at cooking though after watching Brock and Silent do it for so long. The Weeblutin says, I think that the models for the evil team grunts are always the same because the trainer remembers them by their association and their uniform. This honestly seems pretty reasonable. If I saw a bunch of grunts wearing the same uniform, at some point, I just wouldn't even pay attention to their faces anymore. It's kind of like military uniforms. You can't really tell the difference between people. Plus, they're just cannon fodder for their evil team. I would just see their uniform and know what I have to do. Ryulu says, my headcanon. Number 1. Iono often gets sponsorships from G Fuel and Raid Shadow Legends whenever she streams. She probably streams games like Super Squirtle Brothers, The Legend of Gardevoir, Breath of the Wild, and Grand Theft Auto Saffron City. Number 2. The Stardust item you find in-game are probably the remains of Minior that was out of its shell for too long. I feel like Iono, or Iono, I really don't know how to say it anymore, would be the biggest sellout ever. She wouldn't even check if the product is a scam or not. She'd oversell it too, saying it can cure your illnesses or solve world hunger or something. Also, I love these little Pokemon parody games. However, I would like to change Super Squirtle Brothers to Super Meryl Brothers. I just feel like it's more fitting. That second headcanon though is kind of sad. If you don't know, if a Minior stays out of its shell for too long, it dies. So if that really is the remains of dead Minior, that'd be kind of depressing. The Dukester says, my headcanon is that Giovanni really likes his grunts besides Jesse and James, and takes them golfing and has dinners at Applebee's and things like that, but chooses to leave Jesse and James out of it because his Persian doesn't like Meowth. When I first heard this headcanon, my first thought was Kevin from Home Alone. His parents have got to hate him to forget him at home 3 times already. Can you really blame Giovanni though? Jesse and James have been obsessing over some stupid yellow rat for the longest time now and have yielded 0 results. At this point, they're more of a burden if anything, especially with all the machines they create. Those things cannot be cheap. So it's gotta be more than just Persian not liking Meowth. Plus, I feel like Meowth would be the one to hate Persian, and Persian couldn't care less. Haunted Pixel says, I don't know if it's confirmed anywhere, but my headcanon is that Kyurem's ice parts are the results of it trying to replace what it lost after separating from the original dragon. Part of why I think that's the case is because Black and White Kyurem each have ice pieces in opposite places, like White Kyurem's right arm and Black Kyurem's left arm, for example. This is a really cool headcanon, pun not intended, and it sort of reminds me of Aokiji from One Piece replacing his Lego with an ice slug. It isn't confirmed that it's replacing what it lost, but it is basically like an empty shell of the original dragon, just essentially being a husk of what it once was, so you're not entirely wrong on this one. Pancake Cookie says, my chaotic headcanons. I'm sorry in advance. Okay. Number 1. Minior's different colors have different tastes to Rayquaza, and they have favorite Minior flavors. Movies like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse or Oppenheimer exist in the Pokemon world, just with Pokemon as the main characters. If a Pokemon stays in the Distortion realm for too long, they mutate and gain some of Giratina's features. Giratina also stayed there too long and mutates into how we know it today. Eevee already has an evolution for each type and type combo due to its unstable DNA. They just haven't been discovered yet. Penny has tried teaching Nimona, Arven, and the player how to hack and has lost several computers due to them failing desperately and causing the computer to self-destruct or something. We're back to even more depressing stuff about Miniors. Isn't that wonderful? The thought of Miniors just being rock candy for some Rayquazas is really cute but morbid at the same time. But if I was a Rayquaza, I'd like the blue one. Again, I really like the Pokemon parodies thing. This time, instead of video games, we have movies. I feel like Into the Spinnerack verse could work, but I have no idea how to make Oppenheimer work. I don't know, throw in Victini or something. Pokemon mutating in the Distortion world sounds really cool and creepy, but instead of just morphing into Giratina, I think it just mutating in general would have that extra level of eeriness. Nobody wants to be there for too long. The Eevee one is probably just straight up true. I know there's no way to fix this in Pokemon, but I think it's really weird that when a new Pokemon gets added, they just act like they've always been there. Like whenever Ash goes to Kanto, there's a ton of new Pokemon that were not there before on his travels, and it just feels weird. I feel very bad for Penny. This is just like that one headcanon about Arven trying to teach a protagonist how to make a sandwich, and he just can't, but 10 times worse. Nimona definitely does not have the brain capacity to hack anything. Arven probably could if he wanted to, but I don't think he's interested. And the player, well, they look brain dead. Kavina Darrow says, Seibold is the Pokemon equivalent of Gordon Ramsay. Even though he's in the Kalos Elite Four, he's originally from Galar. He spurs like a sailor when angry and has a popular reality TV show like Reverse World's Kitchen. Oh my, I just realized he meant Hell's Kitchen. Okay. All right. I had to Google who Seibold even was because I straight up forgot he even existed. And apparently he's kind of important. Apparently it's this guy. He does have a pretty mean looking face, so I can definitely see him yelling at people. It's also said that he prepares meals for Grant and Valerie, so very good headcanon. All the puzzle pieces are lining up. That one axolotl guy says, I have 3 Pokemon headcanons. 1. Geeta is actually a bad champion because she pays almost nothing to her workers. That's why all the gym leaders in Hassel resort to having secondary jobs. And she invented the whole champion rank thing because she didn't want to lose her champion status. Number 2. The reason why Ash's Bulbasaur doesn't evolve in the anime is because it took inspiration from Pikachu, and he wanted to show that he can be strong as a Bulbasaur. Number 3. The reason why you can find only Seviper in Pokemon Emerald is because there's been a fight for territory between the 2 species, and Seviper won, and even made the entire wild Zangoose population extinct. The same goes for every Pokemon game where they're version exclusives. That Geeta one is probably true. A lot of the gym leaders don't really seem fond of her, and this is like one of the only times every gym leader has a side hustle going on. Probably because being a gym leader just doesn't pay enough. Thanks a lot, Geeta. I also hate the whole champion rank bullshit. She gets defeated and still refuses to step down because apparently she's the first. I just really fucking hate Geeta. Isn't the second one about Bulbasaur just straight up true? I forgot the exact reason, but I feel like Pikachu did have some amount of influence. I like this explanation of why they're version exclusive Pokemon, or at least for Zangoose and Seviper. For most of them, it wouldn't really work because, yeah, Seviper and Zangoose have a rivalry, but it does make sense. Kyle of the Viridian Forest says, my headcanon is that Guzma genuinely thinks of every single member of Team Skull as his own children, so they can have the father figure that Guzma never had as a kid. Edit. He remembers all of their names too, despite them all looking similar. This one is pretty sad and probably true to some extent. If it's not like a father-son type relationship, he definitely at least sees them as family. They're just a bunch of numbskulls. They belong with each other. Nightshade Slasher says, in new Pokemon Snap, we learned that Salazzle likes to dance to music that plays from the Neo one, as a possible reference to Snake Charmers. My headcanon is that Plumeria found this out somehow and decided to pick up an instrument to play for her Salazzle to dance to, as a fun little thing for them to do together. I could see her picking up either guitar or bass. Plumeria learning the bass just fits her so well. I don't know how effective it would be, but I'm sure her Salazzle would enjoy it a ton. Maybe they could form a little band together. If they do get a drummer, it would be criminal for them to not use bones as drumsticks. T-Cake says, I have a lot of Pokemon headcanons, but my favorite one is this. Sometimes a Pokemon is caught to be trained to help someone with a disability, like service animals in our world. A Growlithe or Arcanine that can guide their blind owner around, a Lucario that can sense if their trainer is about to have a seizure, any psychic Pokemon that can telepathically let a deaf trainer hear things, etc. This is a really heartwarming headcanon. I always really like when Pokemon and humans live alongside each other, living their day-to-day lives, so it's a sweet thought that a Pokemon could help their trainer with a disability. George says, I posted my favorite headcanon on the previous videos, but here's some smaller fun ones. Leon and Sonia have been dating to the point that rather than introducing Sonia as his girlfriend, Leon will introduce her as Yamper's trainer, because it mildly annoys her. Kahili sometimes goes into town in disguise so people don't give her special treatment. However, everyone knows it's her because her disguise is obvious, but everyone just pretends to not recognize her to spare her feelings. I think the one with Leon and Sonia is pretty funny, and does honestly seem like something Leon would do. And Kahili going into disguise and people just obviously knowing it's her kind of reminds me of Team Rocket in their shitty disguises. I always wondered how they never knew it was them. Like, it was so obviously James, Jesse, and Meowth, but they're just like, nah, let's let it slide. Cool Beans says, I think I have a few headcanons I can think of off the top of my head. The reason Cyrus has a Crobat is that he manipulated it to believe they're friends to make it evolve and become stronger, when in reality, it is a one-sided friendship with Cyrus viewing Crobat as a tool to use in battle. I think someone else had this headcanon, but I just wanted to say it. The reason Pierre's makes no sound while singing is because his microphone broke right before the player entered. Since he was too tired to replace it, he tells Team Yell to hype him up to make them think the player it's part of the performance. When Clay gets into a battle, he would shout, Yeehaw! The Cyrus and Crobat one is just really dark, but it does make sense because I don't see Cyrus and Crobat like really having that sort of friendship where it can evolve, and Crobat does evolve with friendship. It was always just like kind of a plot hole, right? It kind of goes against his whole like not giving a shit and wanting to reset the world type of thing. And it's just kind of dark, and I like dark things. The Pierre's one is honestly fucking hilarious. I just imagine him like being like, guys, okay, we have bad news. Players coming in, our microphone's broken. Just go with the flow. Just don't question. If anyone asks, just say it's just like this usually. All right, guys? All right? Nice. I always hated that scene in Sword and Shield. It just felt so painfully awkward. The silence was so loud. But with this headcanon, I at least can like rest at ease. Like maybe something funny's going on. And also the Clay one, I just think it's funny. He just comes into battle. Yeehaw! It's just such a Clay thing. Clay's Clay's one of my favorite characters. He's so stupid. That guy's the #1 American in Pokemon. Greatest Bud says, bit of background context for mine. In Black and White 2, through an optional side quest, you can get a bunch of conversations with a character either named Yancey, if playing as Nate, or Curtis, if playing as Rosa. And all the conversations are really cute and you need to read them somewhere if you haven't. The headcanon is that after the events of the game, Nate and Yancey, or Rosa and Curtis, actually end up dating each other and have a super happy and wholesome relationship. I think this one's just cute. That's pretty much it. It gives a bit of character to the main characters, you know, makes them not feel like complete empty husks of the player. But yeah, that's about it. If you guys want more Pokemon headcanons, I would really appreciate if you guys left more. These videos are really fun to make, but God, is it a hassle to read every single headcanon. And also I made a second channel where I just post gameplay videos if that's what you're interested in. We played some Mario Party. I yelled at my friends. We yelled back, you know, shit happens. And we even played Mario Kart, more specifically Double Dash, which you would think would result in teamwork, but no, it's the very complete opposite. That's my dad.
Shut up.
Hey, that's them! Get them! So yeah, thanks everyone. Like the video, subscribe, comment, follow my socials. It's 2 in the fucking morning! Bye everyone.